Let's talk about politics. Now, what's the first thing that pops into your head when you hear that word? For a lot of us, let's be honest, it's kind of a dirty word, right? It makes you think of arguments, maybe corruption, shady backroom deals. But what if that's just a tiny, tiny piece of a much, much bigger story? Today, we're going to try to figure out what politics really is by looking at it through 4 totally different lenses.
So, here's a pretty familiar place to start. The writer Samuel Johnson absolutely nailed this cynical view way back in 1775. For him, politics was just a self-serving game. You know, a ladder people climb for their own personal ambition.
Is that really it, though? Is it all just about power-hungry people looking out for number one? Or is there something more going on?
Well, then you have this, the complete opposite view. For the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, politics wasn't some grubby, selfish activity. No way. It was the noblest thing you could possibly do. He called it the master science, the way we all work together to build a good society. So you see, we've got these two extremes, a cynical game versus a noble science. Let's dig in.
Okay, our first definition. This is the classic one, the one most of us probably learned in school. Politics as the art of government.
So, in this view, politics is what happens in the official halls of power. It's about presidents, prime ministers, passing laws, making policies, the whole shebang. Cabinets, courts, all that stuff. If it's about running the country, it's politics. Simple as that.
And the clue for this idea is baked right into the word itself. Politics comes from the ancient Greek word polis, which just means city-state. So from the very beginning, the word was tied to a specific place, that formal, public arena where the city's business got done. But that feels a little restrictive, doesn't it? I mean, is politics only what happens inside those government buildings? Our second definition says, no, we need to look a little wider, beyond the state.
So this definition broadens our scope. It says politics isn't just the state, it's all a public life. That includes what we call civil society. Think businesses, labor unions, community groups, that kind of thing. They're public, but they're not officially part of the government. The line gets drawn between this big public world and the so-called private world of family and home life.
Just take a look at this. We're not in some fancy parliament building here. We're seeing a public gathering of regular citizens trying to work through a problem together. From this second perspective, what's happening in this picture? Yeah, that is politics.
This seems like a pretty clear distinction, right? Public versus private. But it brings up a huge question. That line in the sand, who gets to draw it? And is drawing that line itself a political act?
And this is where the feminist critique comes in with a really powerful challenge. You probably heard the slogan, "The personal is political." Well, that idea just blows up this whole public/private divide. It argues that power doesn't just magically stop at your front door. Things that happen in the so-called private sphere, like who does the housework or who takes care of the kids, are deeply political because they reflect and reinforce the power structures of the whole society. You see, this forces a massive shift in our thinking. So far, we've been trying to define politics as an arena. It's all about where it happens. But what if that's the wrong way to look at it? What if politics isn't a place, but a process? Not about the location, but about the method.
And that leads us right to our third view, politics as the art of compromise.
So, according to this view, politics is a very specific method for sorting out our disagreements. I mean, think about it. When you hear people talk about a political solution versus a military solution, what do they mean? A political solution means talking, debating, negotiating, trying to find some common ground. It's the exact opposite of settling things with brute force. The political theorist Bernard Crick put it perfectly. He said, politics is how we deal with the fact that we're always going to disagree on stuff, but we choose to do it without, resorting to violence. It's a peaceful, civilized activity, which, you have to admit, is a very positive take and a very, very long way from Samuel Johnson's cynical view we started with. Okay, on to our final definition. And this one, it's the broadest, and maybe the most radical one yet. It strips everything else away and says that at its very core, politics is simply about power. From this perspective, politics is at the heart of all social life. All of it. Why? Well, because we live in a world of scarcity. There's just never enough money or time or status to go around for everyone who wants it. And that constant struggle over how those limited resources get divided up, that is politics. Political scientist Harold Lasswell captured this perfectly with the title of his 1936 book. That's all it was called. Politics: Who Gets What, When, and How. That simple question gets right to the heart of pretty much every political conflict you can imagine.
Think about the floor of the stock exchange. It's not a government building, right? But it is a pure, raw, unfiltered expression of competition for scarce resources. According to this final view, what we're looking at right here is politics in its most basic, elemental form.
So after this whole journey, where have we ended up? We started in the pretty narrow hallways of government, and now it seems like we found politics hiding in every single corner of our lives.
So here's a quick recap of our journey. We started with the tightest, narrowest view, politics as the art of government, just found in the state. Then we broadened out to public affairs, which covers that whole public sphere. Then we did a big pivot, right, and started looking at it as a process of compromise. And we ended up with the widest view of all, politics as power, something you can find in literally any collective social activity.
And when you use this final lens, this lens of power, you really do start to see politics everywhere. I mean, that argument with your roommate about whose turn it is to do the dishes, that's politics. It's a struggle over the scarce resources of time and energy. It's a tiny little power struggle, plain and simple. So it turns out politics isn't just one thing. It's a concept we can look at through all these different lenses, some narrow, some incredibly wide, that help us see power and conflict and cooperation in places we might never have thought to look before. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Now that you have these lenses, where do you see politics?